So the course objectives is to teach introduction to the user interface, how to plan projects without resources, filters, layouts, printing, how to do your baselines, how to update an unresourced project, create and assign roles as well as resources, control projects with resources and cost, how to set up and administer a database, plus advanced features that will include import, export, activity codes, custom data fields, and global change. Successful completion of all these course workshops will confirm that the objectives have been met. Uh, these are just different administration stuff. Skip it. Things that we're going to go over: introduction, creating a project plan, starting up a navigation, new project, and it just goes. It's about 20 workshops that we're going to do all together, and it takes over 27 chapters. So introduction, purpose is to provide a method for planning, scheduling, and controlling projects using Primavera within an established enterprise project database or a blank database, and it's up to an intermediate level. As far as getting an expert level, that comes from actually working with it more and more and working within an organization structure. By the time you're actually using it more, the only thing you're going to do is get better at what you're doing, and that's how you get better with it. Required background, ability to use a personal computer, understand fundamentals of the operating system, experience using application software such as Microsoft Office, and an understanding of how projects are planned, scheduled, and controlled, including understanding the project management processes applicable to your project. Purpose of planning. The ultimate purpose of planning is to build a model that allows you to predict which activities and resources are critical to the timely completion of your project. Strategies may then be implemented to ensure that those activities and resources are managed properly. This ensures that the project will be delivered both on time and within budget. So that's the purpose of your planning, is just to make sure that everything you're doing goes according to your contract that you sent out, whatever you've agreed with your client, and just make sure that either your budget is on time or at least the project is on time, either or. Planning aims to identify total scope and your stakeholders. It plans to deliver the scope and understand your risk going forward. During a project at the beginning stage, they'll go over risk to make sure they can actually mitigate them as they come through. It's always best to, take care of that early on rather than actually fall into the trap of whatever risk comes around. It helps to evaluate different project delivery methods, identify the deliverables under a logical breakdown of the project, which is called a WBS. It's mainly called a WBS, and this is just your deliverable organized under a project. So you will have your project, and then your deliverables falls under them, and that's called your WBS. We'll go into more detail over that. Identify activities required to produce the deliverables, identify and optimize the use of resources, evaluate if target dates may be met, identify risk and plan to minimize them, provide a baseline plan. Your baseline is pretty much saying this is exactly what we're going to use going forward. Whenever you set a baseline, that means the entire management team, including the client, has agreed to this plan, and this is what we're going to use to track our progress. It also assists in stakeholders communication, assists the management to think ahead and make informed decisions. It helps to avoid or assist in evaluating increased project cost or reduction in your scope or quality, additional change over and operational cost, extensions of time claims, loss of your client's revenue, contractual disputes, and associated resolution costs, the loss of reputation of those involved in the project, and loss of a facility or asset in the event of a total project failure. So putting a plan together using Primavera in general can be used for a lot of things, like you just listed, beyond just your project. This can come handy in court if company A runs into a problem where they didn't use the money, or do things according to what they said they want to do, the client A is gonna maybe take them in court, sue them. They do that. Your backing could be the schedule that you've been using so far. Your backing could be a schedule because it can have resources, how you actually use them, what you pay them per hour, how their money went through each person. It can go beyond just a lot of things, and it's very important to stay up to track with your schedules whenever you're actually working on them, because depending on what company you're working for, it can be a big deal. Um, Project planning metrics. A change in any one of these components normally results in a change in one or more of the others. For example, you have your resource, cost, and time, and that pretty much covers the entire scope of a project. If your time extends, let's say we're going to actually shoot out an extra month, most likely it's going to cost more because you're going to have to hire more people, or, you know, anything, it can cost more just based on that. And by resources, you're gonna have to hire more people to an extent, and your time is gonna increase an extent and cost resource. If you're showing your time, you probably end up paying less than what you actually originally planned for. You might use less resources, and it just goes back and forth in each nature. Um, Planning cycle. This is the normal planning cycle. Plan the project and approve the project plan. Then you baseline the project plan once everyone has agreed to it. You initiate the work in accordance with the plan, monitor your progress, evaluate and report, revise the plan if any changes need to be made, and it goes back in that cycle until the end of the project. Levels of planning. There are many books in the market that give guidance. The PMBOK guide, Prince 2, and Jellin's cost and optimization engineering. A lot of people follow the PMBOK guide. It's something to read up on. It's not necessary, but something that can help you out a lot more with your planning stages. A summary of the levels of planning, your WBS, which is called a work breakdown structure. It's a hierarchy structure which usually identifies the major deliverables. Sub-projects allow different organizations to use a planning software by users logging into a database and opening a schedule. Phase development, such as design, procure, install, and test, allow each phase to be broken out into more detail as each phase approaches and more detail is available. So you can have your WBS, which has a deliverable, and under that WBS, you can go create more that's going to be indented under it for maybe a design, your procure, your install, test, and you can actually break that down to identify how you want to arrange your project. A project may be divided into stages which do not overlap in time, and stage plans develop before each stage commences. Now, work packages may be created from one or more WBS nodes and detailed out by a contractor when the work is awarded. A WBS node, we'll touch on that, especially when we actually get into working with the project. But the WBS is just being called a node. I'll show something like that later on. The rolling wave technique adds more detail to a schedule as the work approaches, and a 2-week look ahead schedule is a typical example. So a rolling wave technique may be something where rather than put your full plan out, you may just identify, for example, under design, there may be several steps that needs to happen. So what they could do is just create a one-liner that says design. It will take us 2 months, 60 days, or whatever the duration is. And that's how they'll track it first going on. But as 2 weeks approaches prior, let's say a 2-week look ahead, you'll start to actually break it down and say, okay, we need to do a review. We need to create the design, do review 1, and then you start to break it down as time goes on. So it's called a rolling wave because it's a big entire thing that's decreased at first, and then as time goes on, they start to break it into different phases of how we should actually go through. Monitoring and controlling the project. Monitoring the project ensures it records the start and finish dates of completed activities. The required quality is being met. The required deliverables are being produced. Deliverables are produced on time with the planned resource and to budget. Controlling the project ensures that the project is executed to the plan. Compare the project's progress with the plan. Review options. Forecast problems as early as possible. Record historical data. Records data for dispute resolution.